Our City Council special meeting for November 29th, 2022 is now in session. Roll call.
Mayor Cicerillo.
Here.
Councilmember Stamm. Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Bass. Councilmember Anderson. Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Colbert.
Here. Item 3, approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4, new business. A, approval to formally withdraw contract for real estate sale. Mr. Clark.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry there. I'm losing my voice today for some reason. Thank you for coming this evening for a special meeting. The first item here is the approval to formally withdraw a contract that we entered into with Crane Company back on July 5th, if you recall, during our council meeting. We ended up not actually closing on the property that the city owns. So the city did enter into an agreement to sell Crane Development LLC the 20 1/4 acres on the 4th Street property, now known as Sunflower Valley, because it is platted now. Back in July, it was not platted, but now it is. And so we did have conversations and just ended up not closing on that property. And so the first motion this evening would be to recommend to formally withdraw from the purchase agreement with Crane Company or Crane Development LLC, as that agreement did expire September 30th of this year. I'll stand for any questions and go into further details on the next item.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
Any particular reason why they basically backed out of the agreement?
And so the owner was actually out of the country during that time. And then we tried to make contact and close on the property since September 30th. And we just have been unable to close on the property.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to formally withdraw purchase agreement with Crane Development LLC as the agreement expired September 30th, 2022.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Item B, approval of sale of property in Sunflower Valley subdivision.
All right. Okay. So to not skip a beat, of course, when we have potential development going on like we do here in Valley Center, when it comes to 20 1/4 acres, we would like to enter into an agreement for the same dollar amount that Crane Development LLC did have in the amount of $10,000 per acre. This now does cover Sunflower Valley. It has been platted, and it's lots 1 through 5, block B, and then the reserves B, D, and E. This purchase agreement would be with Air Capital Industrial Park LLC. Their plans are currently to build single-family homes and potentially some multifamily, depending upon just once they get through with putting in the infrastructure, actually building it out and what those lots potentially look like. The reason why we have this before you this evening is really due to the timing of the request for proposal that we sent out for all the infrastructure work. So all the infrastructure work, including roads, water, sewer, storm drains, and sidewalks, we submitted and we actually advertised those proposals to contractors and received those and publicly opened those the end of October. So the end of October, of course, October 25th, you have 60 days to execute those agreements with those contractors after they submit and you open up those proposals for all the infrastructure work. The low qualifying bidder, the low qualifying bidder right now is Meese Construction. That information and that item will be on your next city council agenda. So next Tuesday is when those agreements and contracts and everything will be on your agenda. The reason why we need to do that this evening is because in order for us to go through the process of specials and getting everything in the time frame in the 60 days as indicated in the contract is to then have to do it tonight so we can close on the 4th Street property with another buyer this week. And so this would then, if approved by council tonight with the sale of the property, would close with Air Capital on Thursday of this week. So then next Tuesday, if everything goes according to plan, we don't skip a beat when it comes to doing all the infrastructure work and entering into an agreement and awarding all the infrastructure work, not only for the back 20 and a quarter acres, but also for the front part, that is the commercial area. That commercial frontage, we did close on September 30th with Casado McKay. Casado McKay, of course, is the commercial group that is going to put a restaurant, strip mall, some events, an events venue or something on those properties. And so the infrastructure work is really critical in making sure that that's affordable, so we can do not only the commercial construction component of it, but also the southern part when it comes to the housing side. And so, of course, with unit prices, when you bid on something, contractors bid, on projects, there's a unit price. And so, they factor that in for the entire development. And so in order to keep that unit price and not have that inflate, after the 60 days after they submitted those proposals, is why we then have to sell the ground so that we can kind of go through the next steps. So with not closing with Crane Development, actually was a blessing. So then we can sell it to a group that is ready to go with a letter of credit for the infrastructure work, and then continue on with the same plat and the same construction documents that we submitted out. And so, not saying that there won't be potentially 3D printed structures on this property. We're not saying that. What we're saying is we're going to sell the property potentially to another group of investors that do plan to build single family homes or multifamily, and potentially partner with the 3D folks on a lot or two, because of the way that this plat is. There's large lots. And so there's only 5 large lots if you refer to the plat that are in Sunflower Valley. And so if you look at the little B there in 3, that middle, I call that an island. That island is 1 lot. And so that whole thing is lot 3. The whole thing below that B4, that whole thing is 1 lot. And so hopefully we can partner with Crane Co. when they finally get their printer, because the printer that is going to print these homes is still not here. That's been delayed for almost a year since they've actually purchased it. Is how long it's taken for them to actually get that printer here. So it's still not here today. Just talked with the Crane Company folks today, and they're excited for this partnership potentially with the next buyer, and potentially having lot 3 or 4 3D structures. So kind of a unique way of moving forward with this process and making sure that we still hold unit prices on the infrastructure work, because that's what's important, what's critical to the taxpayers, is making sure that we put good, affordable infrastructure in the ground. I'll stand for any questions. And that was a lot, and I apologize for my voice.
Councilmember Stam.
This is Mr. Gilbert. He is the developer up at 93rd and Meridian also, correct?
Yes, and so that same group, Air Capital, would actually be the ones purchasing the property for cash, and they are the same ones, that we are working with on the pool and recreation center in between the high school and middle school. Yes.
Councilmember Gregory.
Is the current zoning that we adopted going to stand?
Yes. Yep. And so single family homes are absolutely eligible and would fit with the zoning that we move this year.
Okay.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
So my reservation is that we're moving too fast yet again. We moved fast to get this approved, right? It said July 5th, so we could get everything lined up, and it didn't line up as we had hoped. Is this new developer going to actually follow through in 2 days and when we want to close?
Yes, absolutely.
Because
I'm extremely confident with this developer, as we have had negotiations and dealings with the same group. It's kind of funny. And so when that group first came to Mr. Ryan Strack, our community development director, and I, they actually were looking at this piece of property as the reason why they even came to Valley Center, was to discuss this 20 and a quarter acres. And then we were already in negotiations and discussions with another party to sell and develop this. And so then that's when they ended up buying and purchasing the now, known Rowley property in between the high school and middle school. And so, these are folks that, are in the community. They have investments in other areas throughout Wichita, and confident that we will get this done and execute this.
Last question I have is, okay, scroll back down
Mhm.
if you can.
Sorry, trying to find my mouse.
No, you're good.
All the way down to the plat.
Yeah, the street names, are we keeping those or are we changing those? Okay.
Yep. No, everything else stays the same.
Okay.
The only thing that changes is just the buyer.
The buyer. Okay.
That's the only thing that changes in this entire thing.
I still have my reservations as far as how hasty we're moving with this, because sometimes I think we need to sit back and breathe before we move forward. But it sounds like we don't have much of a choice with the specials starting up next week, basically.
Well, and so what this is really for the overall construction cost of the
Right.
infrastructure.
Well, that's what I'm referring to.
So the infrastructure, Meese Construction right now is the low bidder that has not been awarded or any of those things, because that's on the next agenda. And so with having them submit the proposals and open them publicly, you only have so many days to execute that agreement before they could potentially raise those unit prices.
Will them having to work with a different developer change anything for that proposal? Okay.
No, because none of the construction documents themselves, as far as none of the infrastructure is changing.
Thank you.
Councilmember Colbert.
The only question I got for you, is this going to affect anything with Ford Street, delaying it or moving it up because of changing the property's owners? In other words, is the road work going to be complete?
I'm sorry, Councilman Colbert, I'm not understanding your question.
Ford Street.
For the Ford Street itself, no, this has nothing to do with the Ford Street construction project that is currently underway.
Okay.
Councilmember Stam.
One quick question. The part of this project is redoing Dexter Street intersection, right? To where it's not a,
Yep, where you
Yeah,
drop to the.
okay.
Yep.
I thought so, but
Yep, no, nothing changes from what we have, what we have planned for when it comes to the infrastructure work, cleaning up Dexter, sidewalks, commercial. Nothing changes. The only thing that changes is the owner of that 20 and a quarter acres, and potentially instead of multifamily, it may be single family homes, which I know some do appreciate.
Anybody else?
Motion for approval of a purchase agreement with Air Capital Industrial Park LLC for Sunflower Valley lots 1 through 5, Block B, Reserve B, D, and E in the amount of $10,000 per acre.
second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I got one question.
Councilmember Kerstetter?
Yes.
What about the other lots? Is that all the lots that we're selling all the lots, right?
Yes. Yep. And
Okay.
so this sells all the lots that the city had purchased in 2016. It does. We do retain ownership of all the drainage
Okay.
areas, because that's why the property was originally purchased.
What,
And so the little drainage canal, which is Reserve A, is retained by us,
okay.
as well as Reserve C,
Okay. Thank you.
owned by us.
Wanted that clarification on the record.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you. Seeing no other business, to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion a second to adjourn. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Next Tuesday.